Okay, this is a tutorial video on how to make a cube, 5 by 5 by 5 cube to be specific, and this will give you the groundwork on how to utilize Onshape in order to make 3D models. So you are going to go to jordandistrict.onshape.com. I do have a link in Canvas as well that you can just click in and it will take you right there. It will prompt you to sign in using your student ID, so just click on sign in with Google, use your student email to sign in, and it should take you to a page that looks like this. You might get a couple pop-up windows that will ask you what you want your defaults to be. Just hit next on all of them. You might have a terms of service to accept, but once you get through all of those extra windows, you'll get a page that looks like this. Your activity log is going to be blank because you're a new time user probably. So just ignore this stuff right here because these are previous cubes that I've made for previous classes. I'm going to show you how to make them. So let's navigate over to the Documents tab here. And more than likely, you are going to not see anything here because, once again, you haven't made anything in Onshape yet. So we're going to change that. Let's click on this big blue Create button right here, and let's make a new document. And it's going to ask us what we want to name this document. We'll just call it Cube and hit the Create button. So as a new user, you're going to get a bunch of pop-ups, and you can go ahead and close out of those. I will tell you all the information that they are going to convey. So close out of those, and then you should get a page that looks like this with 3 different planes. These are all different on all different axes. So we only want to see one of these to keep it simple. Let's go ahead, and when I hover over here, this left tab here is going to have all of our objects in our document. We don't want to see 2 of these planes, however, so let's go ahead and toggle off the visibility by clicking on this eyeball on the front and the right. So now we are only seeing the top plane here. Okay. One thing you might be confused about, this object right here does not exist. This is just an imaginary object. It is just information for us to understand what plane we're making our sketch on. And how Onshape works is basically you make a 2D object, you sketch a 2D object, and then you pull it out into the 3D plane. You're going to extrude that 2D object into a 3D object. So first things first, we need to make a sketch. So up here at the top, you're going to see the sketch button. If you click on that, it's going to ask you what you want to sketch on. And in this case, we only have one plane to sketch on. See, when I hover my mouse over it, it highlights orange. So if I click on that, I will get yet another square rectangle right here for sketch. Again, this is not an actual shape. This is just information. It's just imaginary, showing me that I am sketching on this plane. If it's helpful for you to understand this, you can kind of imagine this plane as like a tabletop. We're going to be drawing an image on this tabletop and then extruding it into 3D. So if you're following along, it's like right now, it's like you're looking at the tabletop at an angle, and it's going to be hard to draw this way. So this cube right here is how we can manipulate the camera. Of course, you can always right click and move your mouse wheel, or if you're using one of your Chromebooks, you can hold down the Alt key and left click, and that will also rotate your camera. But as you can see, it's really easy to get disoriented when you rotate the camera like this. So this cube is helpful by clicking on it, and it will automatically orient the camera in the direction that you want. And you can play around with the camera, familiarize yourself with it by clicking all these buttons. But ultimately, we want to click on the top cube right here. So this is just like we're looking at the table top down from a top down perspective. Okay, it is flat, and now we are going to be drawing an image on top of this table. In this case, we are trying to make a cube that is 5 inches by 5 inches by 5 inches. So to start, I'm going to go up here in my toolbar, and I want to make a square. In this case, we'll be using the corner rectangle. And if your toolbar does not look like this, it means you're not in a sketch. So you want to look on this left-hand side and make sure that you double-click into your first sketch. Once you are in a sketch, your toolbar will change. So we're going to click on corner rectangle, and I click once, left click once, and this is the first corner of our square. Then I simply move the mouse over to create the other corner here. And now I have created my first actual shape that is in my documents, a square. Okay, so you're probably wondering, what about the size? Don't worry about the size. Just click one corner, move your mouse over, then click it again. We'll set the size now. Up here at the top, you're going to be using this icon a lot in Onshape, and it's called dimension. So when you click on that, you notice that it's asking you what you want to set the dimension to. If I highlight over one of these edges, they highlight orange. So we're going to set the dimension for 2 of these edges. So I'll left click here, and automatically your mouse is going to be able to move around with this number and these arrows. It will be right on the edge. I like to move it a little bit above so I can see it correctly. And I'm going to left click once more. And it's going to ask me how many inches do I want to make this edge. And 5 is the dimensions that we're looking for. Hit the enter button. And now this edge is 5 inches long. Okay, simple enough. As you can see, our dimension icon is still highlighted blue. So now I can select this edge, slide it over a little bit. And we want this to be 5 inches as well. So type in 5. So now I have successfully made a square that is 5 inches by 5 inches. If your camera is zoomed in too close and you can't see the full picture, if you use the mouse wheel to scroll out, that's how you zoom out the camera. If you are using a touchpad on a Chromebook, your 2 fingers on the touchpad will scroll in and out as well to zoom in or zoom out the camera. But now we have a 5 by 5 square. So we are on the 2-dimensional plane. We need to extrude this square out into the 3rd dimension. So up here at the top left, you're going to be using this icon a lot too. It's called the extrude button, and it's a small square in front of a larger square. So if you click on that, the Onshape is automatically going to assume that you're talking about the square that you made because it is the only shape in the sketch. So if we were to rotate the camera, you can see that it has extruded it out 1 inch. That is not what we want. We want it to be 5 inches. So I'm going to click on that, type the 5, and then press the enter key. And automatically we can see that it extrudes our square out 5 inches. We're all done with this, so we can hit this green check mark. And I want to reference this left-hand side real quick because we saw that our planes are represented here. And whenever I highlight over each one of these, it highlights orange. Now we have our first sketch, and that is our square that we made. So if I wanted to go back and edit something in that first sketch, I can double-click on that sketch 1, and it will automatically take me back to that step so I can change the number. So say if I wanted this edge to be now 10 inches, I can double click on it, hit 10, press enter, click this green check mark that I'm all done in that sketch, and now the rest of my project will be updated. So that's a really handy tool if you have a lot of steps forward and you don't want to undo and have to redo all your steps. You can just go back to any of these items and redo it. Let's say if I wanted to change the how far I have it extruded, I can just double click on extrude 1 and set the depth there. Now, the universal hotkey for any kind of program, not just Onshape, is Control-Z. So if I wanted to undo this 10 inches and just make it 5 inches, which I do, I'm going to hit Control-Z and go back to this step. So we have our cube. It is 5 by 5 by 5. Now we have a couple different tasks that we need to put on each face. And when I say face, I'm talking about each one of these squares. There's going to be 6 faces to the cube. So we can actually, just like we did a sketch on this plane, which we can toggle off the visibility once more, because we're not going to use that anymore to make sketches, we can now make sketches on any of these faces. So the first sketch, or the first face manipulation we're going to do is make a sketch on this face. So when I click on sketch, just like I did for the planes, you can highlight over any of these faces, and you see that it turns orange. So it's asking me to select a sketch plane. In this case, let's select this guy. So now we can see that we have sketch 2 over this face. So I'm going to, again, click on this little camera cube to reorient myself, and now I'm looking down on that face, okay? This time we're going to be making a cylinder. So a cylinder starts with a 2D circle. So let's make a 2D circle here. I don't care how big it is. And let's extrude it, just like we did for the cube. Automatically, the default unit of measurement is an inch, and for this, that is just fine. So now I have extruded a circle off of the face of one of my cubes, okay? So that's 1 out of 6, check. The second one we're going to want to do is a square cutting into the face. So this one we haven't covered yet. It's going to be a little complicated, but I think if you're following along, you should do just fine. Let's make a sketch on another blank face. So let's do it on this guy. I'm going to change my camera so it's looking right at it. And let's make this time another square, but we're going to make it into a rectangle. I don't care how big it is. And this time we're going to extrude it yet again, only with one different step. So right now it's going to say, okay, extrude that an inch. That's its default answer. But no, we want to, instead of add, we want to remove. So it's going to cut into my square 1 inch. Now we could potentially cut this all the way through. So if our cube is 5 inches, we could set any distance longer than 5 inches to have it go all the way through. So if we did something like 6 inches, hit the enter button so it registers, it's going to cut that rectangle all the way through our object. Now we're going to use this face for something else, so I don't want to cut it all the way through necessarily. Let's do something like 2.5. So it's going to go halfway into the cube. Perfect. So we have 2 faces done. Okay, only 4 more to go. The second one we want to create is a ring. So in this case, we're going to, once again, hit sketch, select one of these faces. We'll do this one. Change the camera so we're looking at it. And you can see that we're on sketch 4 now. Okay, so this time we're going to make 2 circles. 1 circle and 2 circles. Then we hit the extrude button, and it should automatically assume that you want to do it out of this ring. You may have to select it, but nope. In this case, it automatically knows that I'm trying to extrude out this ring. Easy enough. Okay, the next step we want to do is a 2-tiered tower. So we want 2 extrusions on one face. So I'm going to click on Sketch. Click on one of these faces. Reorient ourselves. In this case, I want to make a square, but you can do whatever shape you want. Extrude that out. It'll automatically assume we want 1 inch outwards. That's just fine. Hit this green check mark. And then I want to sketch on top of this face. In this case, I will do a circle. So we'll just go in the middle right here. Hit the extrusion button, and we have 2 towers. Okay, looking good. I think we just have 2 more faces left. The next one that's required is kind of a free-form shape, and you're able to make whatever shape you want, as long as it's school appropriate. So let's click on this face, this camera, to look at this face. We're going to click on Sketch. Click on this face, and instead of using the square and the circle tool, we will be using the line tool and the 3-point arc. So let's just make a little heart. In this case, I'll click on the 3-point arc first. So the 3-point arc works by setting 1 point, setting the other point, and then you can manipulate the distance. So in this case, we'll do the first 3-point arc, and then we'll do the second 3-point arc. Now, we just do the bottom of the heart with our straight lines. So it's a little off-centered. It still works. And I wanted to take this opportunity to let you know that an object won't be extruded if it has any breaks in it. So if I was to just set the line, let's see, and if I was to set the line right here, this will not be extruded. It needs to be a complete object in order for it to be extruded. So once you have your complete object that you've designed, hit the extrusion button again. It will automatically assume you're talking about this because it's the only shape in your drawing, unless you did multiple drawings, in which case you may have to select which ones you want to be extruded. So we have our heart, and now we just have one more thing that I want to show you with your cube, and then I will teach you how to export this. So you're going to actually, surprisingly, not hit the sketch button. We need to make a fillet, and a fillet is a rounded edge. So we're going to select this last remaining face that doesn't have anything attached to it, and this icon up here is called the fillet. This is basically going to round off our cube. Now you can set the distance of how far it is rounded off. Right now it has it at 0.8 inches for me, so you can see that it is rather round. Or I could just do something smaller, like 0.1, in which case it would just make a very tiny fillet, very tiny curve. If you zoom in close, you can see it a little bit better. So once you have your cube and it has all 6 requirements on it, then we can export it out. Now, all of my files, in order to be 3D printed, I need them to be an STL format. So I'll show you how to do that. Down here at the bottom, we have our part. This is all of this. You notice when I select over part 1, the whole thing is highlighted in orange around the edge. If I right click on that and go to export, we can now change the file name, format, all that, units, yep, all good. So the file name, we'll just call this one your first name, whatever it may be, the last name, underscore, and then cube. That's what we'll call the file name. Now your file format might be default Parasolid. We want it to be STL, okay? We're not going to 3D print these out, but it's just good practice to make sure that the format is as an STL. STL format, binary, that's fine. Now your default unit of measurements may be centimeter, inch, whatever. The slicing software utilize it, its default is in millimeters, so we want the units to be in millimeters. Resolution is going to be probably medium, that's okay. And the options are going to be download, so we'll just go with download. Then you hit export. And now we will have an STL file right here. This is the file that you're going to be submitting in Canvas for your assignment, for your grade, okay? Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, please review this video and make sure that I didn't already cover it. If I did not, feel free to email me, reach out to me, and I'd be more than happy to help you out.